Haslinda, Amin, anchor on Bloomberg TV. An ongoing debate is heating up. Questions over whether globalization or nationalism will define the next decade. Some say perhaps there could be another option, globalization or a slowdown in global trade. Let's get insights. Kumar Birla is chairman of Aditya Birla Group. With operations across 36 countries, it gets more than 50% of its revenues from overseas. Mr. Birla, good to have you with us. You know, it's been a strange 18 months and a challenging few years. A wave of protectionism followed by a pandemic. For a company like Birla, a diversified company, how are you growing in this new environment?
Oh, that's a very good question, Haslinda. I think that it's important to put context to this. So we are, as Aditya Birla Group, a global corporation. We have a presence across the world. We have had a presence outside of India from way back in 1965. We just, for example, celebrated our 50th year in Thailand the year before last and our 25th in Egypt last year. We have a presence across sectors. So we are multi-sectoral and we have a presence in 36 countries. I think that kind of a footprint allows you to place many bets and you learn from each of those bets. I would say that our pace of activity and the breadth of businesses provide very unique insights on how the world operates. And I think that you can always move these pieces of knowledge around into the future. I think that we've kind of made a shift in our mix of businesses. We're a conglomerate. We've loaded on or over-indexed on the services footprint of services businesses, like let's say financial services today as a business is much more important than it was in the past. And I see that as a complementary counterpart to, let's say, a large manufacturing footprint. I think that the whole theme of globalization just has a much more regional pattern now. I think it's a reflection of the times that we are in. People are looking for shorter value chains, as we keep hearing all the time. We are looking at regionalism as a very big theme, regional hubs, regional presence, regional employment, catering to regional demand. So, for example, I would say that we at the Birla Group are a global company, but rooted in local economics. Having said that, we still remain very much a global corporation. For example, last year, our aluminum rolled products company, Aleris, acquired our rolled products company, Novelis, acquired another company in its space called Aleris in what was the largest outbound M&A from India at a transaction value of $2.8 billion. So I think whilst global linkages will remain as of now in the current context, and I see that being this way for the next several years, globalization will have a very sharp dimension of regionalization to it.
Mr. Birla, might globalization be the answer, especially against the backdrop of climate change? Or is it better to perhaps look inwards, look towards your domestic market for growth? After all, if you take a look at the likes of the US, it's looking at reshoring as the way forward.
I think that goes back to the question and the issue of regionalization. I think that, again, we're talking about more local, more regional. If you look at the current protectionism sentiment, if I remember right, intra-regional trade, whether it's the ASEAN trading bloc or the Eurozone, intra-regional trade is a much larger part of global trade today than it was in the past. I think different countries, different governments follow different policies to create, for example, homegrown champions, hopefully by giving incentives and not by creating barriers to international trade. Having said that, I mean, we know globalization has helped economies across the world for several decades. It's helped the developed economies in terms of making accessible to them low-cost goods and services, consumer goods at low inflation. For the less developed economies, it's been about generating employment opportunities by investing in export-oriented businesses. I think globalization does not need to be a zero-sum game. If I look at data in the last couple of years, the impact of contraction of global GDP has had a far lower impact on global trade than what one would have imagined. And that, uh, I think, speaks to the fact that the fortunes of economies are still dependent on global interlinkages.
I want to take a look at your reach and the opportunities for M&As across borders. You've been pretty aggressive in the M&A space since you took over many years ago. How are you now looking at M&As across borders? What deals might you be interested in the next 12 months? Where, which sectors in particular?
So fair to say, Haslinda, that we have 4 or 5 really large global businesses. Each one of them offers opportunities to grow inorganically. And the question we ask before making any acquisition, for example, is, will this add value to our stakeholders, to our shareholders? What is the specific objective of making this acquisition? What do we seek to achieve? And how will we measure what we've achieved 3 or 4 years down the line after having made the acquisition? So I think, cross-border M&A is something that we still look at very much. We keep scanning the environment for opportunities that add value to our portfolio, especially to
so you're looking at making acquisitions in the next 12 months?
So difficult to make a very specific comment. Let's just say that our team is constantly looking at opportunities, scanning global candidates for acquisition, so to speak. So whilst on the one hand you have regionalization, nationalization, we're also looking at international acquisitions, cross-border M&A activity. But the important thing is that in these acquisition targets that we're looking at, there needs to be a strong element of regionalization. So you have interregional, for example, again, our aluminum road products company has regions within which value chains operate, right from the point of sourcing to the point of selling to the customer. We wouldn't look at a company or a business where you source in one corner of the world and sell in the other corner of the world. That, I think, would be a phenomenon that we would not be acceptable to most global corporations.
Right.
And that's the reset that has happened on account of growing protectionism.
How about opportunities within India? When we spoke 5 months ago, you talked about how you're investing $2.4 billion to ride India's V-shaped recovery. And now people are saying that V ain't coming.
So I think that the alphabets keep changing. But I would say that the economy is pretty much back in shape, coming back into shape. After the first wave, I think it had come back into shape pretty much completely. I think this time around, it's been a setback for a little longer, maybe a month longer than it was last time around. But I pretty much see the economy coming back. I see vaccinations happening much more now. The pace of vaccination is going up. One is looking for a stronger stimulus to the informal sector, which has been impacted much more this time around than the last time around. I believe that the rural economy will rebound on what is supposed to be an astounding agricultural output, a record agricultural output. And I think the medium long-term view on that I have on India pretty much remains intact. Some of the underlying trends of the economy have got accelerated because of this pandemic. For example,
right.
Normalization of the economy, digitization. So I don't think that anything changes from an economic perspective. This is more an episodic setback than a structural setback, as I see it.
Kumar Birla, we thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.